um, and I just re-emphasise that again, in the sense, a goal setting for you, and I know you probably have a goal to win a seat in New South Wales at the next election. That's important, goal setting is important, but what really counts is what you do underneath. It just doesn't happen because you set the goal. It's the work that you do that enables it to happen that's important. I think any program of reform is likely to be based on the recognition of certain principles. So if I think about some of the economic principles that were behind the development of that policy, it was a recognition that incentives matter, the recognition that there's no such thing as a free lunch, the recognition that increases in real income depend on increases in real output, and that secondary effects are always taken into account when you're looking at policy. And whilst these things are pretty standard, and you all know them, when you're in the hurly-burly of politics and developing policy, sometimes it's easy to forget. The fact that people will be more productive if taxes are low, and that people will be more industrious and use resources better under private ownership are also important. The fact that competition promotes the efficient use of resources, that competition in government is just as important as it is in the private sector. That's certainly not recognised, say, by the present Australian Labor government, and it wasn't recognised by Helen Clark's government as well. And it also, you need to recognise, and one of the things is to point out to people that the cost of government is the decline in private sector activity. All of these things, the average person who thinks that education is somehow free or healthcare free don't necessarily understand. As I see it, there are three prerequisites to major progress. A broad consensus on longer-term goals for the nation, a reliable program to achieve those goals, and quality people committed to achieving both. Goals are, in fact, are primary. Until we form a coherent view about our destination, it is in many ways pointless to plague ourselves with the question about how to get there. Setting the right goals is not the real problem, or not a real problem. Many aspirations are in fact worldwide. What then are the factors that people consider critical for them and their families to help them make the most of their lives? My suggestion, and it's only a suggestion, lists is quite simple. Feeling of self-worth, opportunity, initiative, independence, security, social responsibility, a system fair to self and to others. In one sense, all of the items on that list can be regarded as cliches. Politicians prat on about them all the time. But that does not alter the fact that they are the qualities most fundamental to a sense of human well-being. So the real question then becomes, how do we make those goals matter? How do we make them the foundation of a serious program designed to transform New Zealand or designed to transform Australia? Once again, my suggestion is quite simple. We should ask ourselves what this country would be like 25 years from now if we could lead the world in those 7 personal and social ambitions. I wrote a paper about a month ago, How to Catch Australia by 2025. I think I gave your executive 1 or 2 copies, but I'll come back to that maybe a little later. But it is based on that sort of principle of where you want to be. And often if you actually go out where you want to be, it's pretty easy actually to work out how to get there. If you have that sort of vision, it opens up a vision totally unlike anything currently being offered by the present major parties, either in New Zealand or Australia. I believe it's a program well worth fighting for, and that's one of the only reasons that I went back into politics. The other was my wife's encouragement. I went shopping with her twice, and she told me to get the hell out of it. I the added virtue that the economic and social policies needed to achieve those goals can be reliably defined. To be successful, we would need to lead the world in high growth rates, high quality education, high quality healthcare, low debt, low tax rates, and a highly competitive marketplace in the welfare areas such as education, health, and accident, sickness, compensation, etc. The disillusionment with politics springs precisely from the realisation that no party is offering to deliver such a combination of policies at present. So the next thing in line is, in importance, are the means capable of achieving those goals. Once we have to have a clear vision of the desirable objectives, we are then free to think in fresh ways. For example, traditional analysis has always assumed that low tax rates are in conflict with quality education and quality healthcare for everyone. It was taken for granted, or it has been taken for granted, that tax-funded schools and hospitals were the only means to provide universal service, particularly for the low-income worker. So free, so-called free, state provision came to be seen as the primary objective of the exercise, not simply one of several means available to achieve those goals. My old colleagues in the Labour Party, you never hear them talk about the student or the patient, only government delivery, government schools and government hospitals are what it's all about. So once a good education system for everyone is made the central focus again, it becomes clear that there is more than one way to get universal education equality. When the government takes money away from the public and then decides what schools to provide, what subjects to teach, it imposes a single standardised approach throughout the system. In giving up their money, parents also sacrifice the right to personal choice. In one scenario, the state, instead of building schools and paying teachers, would simply ensure parents via a tax credit and or a voucher. I personally prefer a tax credit to a voucher, but both would work, would simply ensure parents had the money to buy a good education in an open marketplace for their children. This is where ACT in New Zealand, and I think the Liberal Democratic Party here in Australia, differs from all the other main existing parties. This is our point of difference. This is how we differentiate ourselves. An average person or an average family, in part from education, on an average wage is already paying taxes, but paying via taxes the total cost of their healthcare, their welfare, accident, sickness and unemployment, and much of their education costs, depending on the number of children they have. If they kept their own money and or tax credit for education and paid for these services personally, they could save on the system by removing a lot of civil servants. At the same time, they would have much more influence over the quality of education, healthcare and social welfare being provided. That principle in New Zealand applies to 70% of the government budget. That is, billions of dollars a year the government removes